Hey everyone, welcome back to WorkTech. We've got some more industry news. Wedge, a video screening solution, announced a $2 million addition to its seed round. And today I'm joined by CEO and founder Matt Baxter to discuss the deal and tell us more about Wedge. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me. Fired up to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to learning more about Wedge, and congrats on the round.
Thank you.
And for those that don't know what Wedge is or don't know you, Matt, could you maybe start out with a quick intro of yourself and Wedge?
Yeah, happy to. My name is Matt Baxter. Grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I went to Hope College here on the west side, Grand Rapids, Holland, Michigan area. I started my career in landscaping and lawn care. So naturally, the next stage is you go from mowing lawns to HR tech, which is a very typical transition. Started Wedge when I was in college. The idea on a napkin was it felt like when I was hiring for my lawn care, there wasn't really a lot that I cared about on paper. I more cared about who somebody was. Can they shake my hand? Can they have a conversation? If they could do those things, I could teach them the rest. Flip side of that, as I was thinking through that as a college student, I have a bunch of friends who are saying the same thing. Look, if I only have a resume or a sheet of paper, that's not who I am. And I don't have the 4.5 GPA that apparently they can get now. I was close to half that. And so it's one of those things where they didn't have an opportunity to share their story above and beyond resumes, cover letters. So fast forward to today, Wedge is a one-way video interview platform. We're also a talent attraction platform. Our job is to help companies make their hiring process more efficient, both by helping them find candidates and also to help them screen candidates as well. But something obviously we'll probably dive into is we want to give an opportunity for candidates and people to share their story above and beyond resumes and feel like their story is heard. So it's a HR tech platform. Like you mentioned, we closed a funding round, which is it was not a popping a bottle of champagne. It was let's go take a nap for about 20 minutes and get back after it. But yeah, it's a little bit about Wedge and about myself.
Yeah, and I noticed that your language. I mentioned you're a video screening solution. And that's an interesting distinction because there's a lot of video interview or asynchronous video interview. And between that little bit of messaging and then you've really positioned Wedge around attraction, engagement, and automation. I'm curious, like how do you deliver on those three items or more? What's the secret sauce for Wedge?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, so part of the very clear-cut language that we use around video screening and some of the talent attractions, when people think video interviewing, and yes, it's evolved a little bit, but definitely 2 years ago, first thing they thought about was, isn't this Zoom? And also they thought about, well, you're trying to come in and replace the interview. And that's actually not the case at all. What we're trying to do is help make sort of that pre-screening or that screening stage or that earliest stage of interactions with the real candidate a much more efficient and effective process so that by the time you are interviewing them, be it Zoom, be it in person, be it a phone call, whatever it may be, you know much more about them or at least more snippets that it's not just the kind of crappy. So tell me about yourself. It's much more, all right, I know a little bit about you. Now let's talk about the role. Let's talk about who you are as a person. Let's talk about your fit in the company, whatever it may be that you're actually getting to know the candidate. So certainly, where we come in and not only on the talent attraction side, but the screening side and getting to know the candidates is certainly designed around making a presentation so the candidate, it's much deeper in the earliest stages of the hiring process. Talent attraction arm, obviously we're helping companies that are allocating a lot of media dollars. They're spending boatloads of money and they just don't really know how to do that, know best where to do that. So we're going to help them drive candidates certainly to that top of funnel, make that remarkably easy on the candidate, make the candidate experience remarkable and actually fun. One of the coolest parts about my job, so people think CEOs get paid boatloads of money. We don't yet for a while. But one of the things that I love is I get LinkedIn messages all the time from candidates saying like, I just went through a Wedge video and that was actually one of the coolest experiences. I actually felt like my story was heard. And that's not me paying somebody to write a review. That's all the intentional work we've put into making the candidate experience remarkable so that as candidates, as people are and we're out there saying our job is to make sure candidate stories are told. Well, that means complete crap unless we actually do it from a tech standpoint. And so that's one of the areas that we really spend a lot of focus in. And kind of the secret sauce, yes, is ease of use. Yes, our partnerships. Yes, integrations. Yes, all those things play into the fold of how to deliver a great HR tech product. But even further on top of that is how can I make sure that the person applying for a Chick-fil-A job, the trucker with a CDL applying for a role, the middle management, sales manager, the nurse, actually feels like their voice is heard in the hiring process That's what we're trying to deliver day in and day out, aside with, partnering with all of the different great organizations we work with as well too.
Yeah. And you mentioned up front, you use the phrase one way. So does that suggest the asynchronous nature of it? Is it?
Yeah, I was about to say that's the, when you think about I'm the audience, I can't ever spell asynchronous. So we had to, come out on demand one way. There's obviously some different jargon, but nobody wants to talk about asynchronous. What does that even mean? Obviously you can explain it, makes sense, but on demand, one way, asynchronous, they all kind of fit in the same mold. But the idea is that it's a company sets up a set of questions, candidates respond to questions. Those questions are set up on your own time. Candidate goes through the act of responding to those on their own time in the reveal process. So you're removing the scheduling, you're removing sort of the live nature of it, which again, we're not advocating to get rid of, but our job is to help present sort of that candidate story, at least that candidate elevator pitch in the earliest stages of the hiring process. And that's where asynchronous communication works really well.
Okay. Now, what you just talked about a moment ago was experience. And I'd love to drill in a little bit on that experience. I think you covered the candidate side pretty well, if there's anything more to add there, but also on the hiring side, the hiring team, the manager, the recruiters, and who's your, I guess maybe if you could put it all in the context of your current target customer profile.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. So on the candidate side, obviously, there's some simple things. It's like, let's make this design so that candidates are going through it, not a bunch of brilliant, highly paid engineers making this. Like at the end of the day, everyday people, if you will, have to go through this, and let's make it so that everyday people like myself, like I'm no brainiac, I'm no brain surgeon. So if I can't do it, I know there's a bunch of other people can't. And so it's just thinking through things like, how do we make a remarkable, like how few of clicks can we get it so the candidate can actually begin recording? How can we allow them to test their equipment to make sure it works well? There's just some, UX, UI, that whole process around what we're actually delivering to the candidate. But then it's also some of the coaching conversations we have with companies about what are you actually trying to get out of a candidate here? So we allow both retakes and no retakes as a function that companies can choose to have their candidates go through. So what does that mean? When you're presented a question, you answer that question. You can choose as a company, do you want candidates to have one take or retakes, right? So if I was applying for a job with you, George, you probably want to see how I do on the fly. I'm raising capital all the time. I'm in sales. I'm on a podcast. If I don't do well, it happens like that. And that's part of my job. Whereas there are plenty of roles that it's not as high stakes, and it doesn't matter how quickly I sell. It's much more of a longer fold conversation, or so allow candidates to go through retakes. That's okay. And that's where things like a truck driver, why are you going to make them go through one take, 1 minute? That has absolutely nothing to do with the job. Right. Whereas if you were hiring a salesperson, it certainly does. And that's why our tool can be flexible to what kind of you need as the company. The other thing too that we certainly allow is, do you want to have custom questions? So do you want to, as a company, deliver a very standardized process? And there's certainly some roles that's required. Or do you want to, and when I say standard, meaning, do you want it to be pretty typical canned questions, that sort of thing? Or do you as a company want to make custom questions so that you can use so that the candidate experience that? That certainly is a remarkable marketing tool that you can use. Or if you have high candidate flow and you're just trying to get them through the system, you can certainly do that. We don't always recommend that, but certainly companies want that. So there's just some very low-hanging fruit, like custom questions, retake. Don't make a candidate answer 5 questions, 25-minute long questions, that sort of thing. That's a terrible experience. Give them 3 to 5 questions, 1 to 2 minute long, get a gist of who they are. Those are all things that we certainly come along and have conversations with companies about making that a good candidate experience and making it a good company experience as well.
Yeah. Now, earlier you mentioned, what integrations and what sounded like a real appreciation for the ecosystem that you're a part of. Can you talk to that a little bit? Are you, what are you integrating with? What types of systems or what systems, and where are you on that trajectory right now?
Well, George, 4 years ago, coming from HR, coming from landscaping and lawn care, I didn't even know what an ATS was. So by nature, I kind of had to get to know the ecosystem, because what we had companies coming back and saying was, yes, this tool works great, but it doesn't work with our other systems. And therefore it adds more time than it does take away. Okay, well, what are those other systems? Applicant tracking systems. Got it. Should probably figure out what those are. So, I mean, I'm super thankful for our partners like Jazz HR and Applicant Pro that were some early on adopters to us, that we can come in, integrate our solution, and they can, extend it a part of the workflow, whether it's the front end portion, second portion, whatever it may be. We've got a lot of great partners in the space that we partner up with. Specifically, I would say an emphasized focus on applicant tracking systems would certainly be where we fall. The Greenhouses, the Levers of the Worlds, the JobVites, the Jazzes, the Applicant Pros, the Hiring Things, those are all people that we play really great with. And then certainly what we're getting creative with now is what are some additional organizations that we can partner with? Is it assessment providers? Is it background check providers? A lot of us are going after the same markets. And I think I might have missed actually one of the questions you had is what kind of is our target audience? To start, we certainly had a target audience around, 100 to 1,000 employees, because just as a growing tech startup, our product offering has expanded. So we've certainly started to go up mid-market, but, our love is in the SMB space. And now we're entering into the mid-market quite a bit. And we even have companies as large as like Garda World Security is a 100,000 plus employee company. So we can scale up. Part of the reason for the SMB focus is as a young tech company entering in HR tech, the sales cycle takes a little bit longer with enterprise. So obviously there was a big opportunity in the SMB, but now that the product's grown quite a bit, we've certainly been able to cover a lot wider ground.
Yeah. That's a smart way to go, and focus and learn and let your customers lead you, up market. Kudos on you for that.
Smart is one interpretation. Dumb luck and kind of tripped into it is another, depending upon how you want to look at it.
Yeah. Well, what is it? The intersection of luck and hard work, right?
That's success. Something like that.
Yeah. Right. So you mentioned the NAP. What else are you going to use the funding for?
Yeah. So obviously, team expansion has been great. We've kind of gone a little bit non-traditional in our funding path. We've raised just under 5 million total, and it's been predominantly through angel investors. We welcomed a couple institutional investors in this past round. And so we've been very blessed with some patient investors of saying, hey, we believe in you. We trust you. We know you're going to grow, pivot, adjust, change. And so now we kind of have a system built. We kind of have we have product market fit. We have growth. We have steady customers. We have people that stick with us. Now let's dial up that marketing engine. Let's continue to grow the product offering so that it serves our current customers. But also, we have the opportunity to expand quite a bit in the mid-market, even beyond. And let's continue to add to the product that allows us to do that. Certainly it's team growth, which has been a blast. And obviously there's not, it doesn't come without its growing pains, but that's that's the name of the game and the fun of it. So
yeah. And so one of the questions I don't get to ask everyone is, it sounds like you've got a book coming out, and what's that all about?
The book is called The Hiring Knot. And so Theo Rokos, our company president, and I sort of co-authored the book, and we brought in some guests, some amazing guest authors who cover a wide range, everything from recruiting to the hiring manager, diversity, inclusion, staffing. And then we have, of course, Tim Sackett wrote the foreword to the book as well too. So it's the idea is obviously we want to come across as sort of industry experts, and that's why we brought in some great people. But the theme and the topic around the book is I come at it from an outsider's perspective. Again, I don't come from HR tech at all, and Theo's spent 20 years in HR tech. So he's kind of taking the insider role, and how can we sort of untangle this craziness that's this broken hiring process we all talk about, and how can we take an insider and outsider's perspective on those challenges and look at it from the candidate's point of view, look at it from the very simple conversation with companies is you want to hire somebody. Okay, you need to define what a job is, right? So those are, we kind of take a dummied approach and then bring in industry experts to say, I think we've got an amazing challenge in our hands, but one worth solving, and let's go do it.
Yeah. I'll tell you, fresh eyes, that's where innovation, a lot of innovation comes from in the space. And so, it's good that you've surrounded yourself. Theo was one of the co-founders of Green Job Interview, which had a nice exit later on. But yeah, he's been in the industry a while, as you mentioned, and he's also gone from, the SMB to the enterprise, large enterprise. So, that's good to surround yourself with people like that. Sackett had to write the forward, just he's in Michigan, right? So
Yeah, of course, of
yeah,
course. And he says some very nice things about me, very uplifting and very supportive.
okay.
So
There you go. There you go. So is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't about the company, or anything you'd like to share about the product before we wrap up?
No, we're excited. We're super fired up about our opportunity in this space. Obviously, as I mentioned, we've had some very supportive investors, and happen to sort of dumb luck be in the midst of a pandemic and be a video provider where the whole game changed.
Yep.
And so we're remarkably excited. We obviously we want to be a company that makes money and grows, but also that does have an impact in the space. And so I want to strongly encourage that candidates, companies, anybody that uses the product that I don't directly get to interact with, please reach out. Please, whether it's to the team members or me directly, I'm very loud and obnoxious on LinkedIn, and we like to hear those stories because that makes us better. And so everybody that we partner with, every candidate that goes through our product, it's crazy to go from 2 years, 3 years, 4 years ago, we were getting 1, 2, 3, 10 candidates a day, and now it's hundreds and thousands sometimes a day. And that experience is wild, but we don't want to forget the fact that at the end of the day, those are people applying for jobs. Those are people that are trying to pay a mortgage. Those are people that are trying to put food on the table. And if we can't deliver something for them, not that every person who goes through a product is going to get that job, but our job is to think about them as people and help those stories be told. And so any feedback that we can get, we're open to, and we want to continuously grow this thing, and we're fired up. So I just appreciate the opportunity to say that.
And where can people find you to give you that feedback?
Yeah, they can find the website is wedgehr.com. Also, they can find us, Wedge on LinkedIn, or it's Matt Baxter on LinkedIn as well too. Certainly open and happy to receive any feedback. And then the book's available. I think June 1 is the official launch for Amazon, but you can find it in a lot of different spots right now online as well too. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was going to ask if it's available. Well, congrats on the round. Congrats on your success, the book, and wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with everyone.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.